Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, with it being revealed that Tory MP Neil Parish is being investigated for allegedly watching adult material in the House of Commons, we ask, is pornography harmless fun? We'll speak to an adult entertainer and a practicing Christian. In our news agenda, will Vladimir Putin nuke the West? We'll speak to a top US expert on that very subject. And my Mark Meets guest is the queen of 80s pop, Sinitta, talking showbiz, fame and falling in love with Simon Cowell. In my big opinion, why the left are so worried about Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter and Labour's Partygate hypocrisy, plus my all-star panel, including author, writer and commentator Dr. Rakib Ehsan, journalist Sam Dowler and Olympic gymnast Lisa Mason. A very busy 2 hours. First up, the headlines with Simon Pusey.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Simon Pusey in the GB newsroom. Neil Parish is rejecting calls to stand down as an MP while he's investigated for allegedly watching pornography in the House of Commons, suggesting he may have opened a video accidentally. The Select Committee chair said he would be continuing his duties as an MP while cooperating with investigators. It's after he had the Tory whip suspended earlier today. Mr Parish was on GB News just 2 days ago. This is what he told us about the incident then.
I mean, I think the Whip's office will do a thorough investigation and we will wait and see that result. And I think, from that, then the decision will have to be made what action to be taken.
The former Wimbledon champion Boris Becker has been sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in prison after being found guilty of flouting the terms of his 2017 bankruptcy. The former world #1 tennis player was accused of hiding £2.5 million worth of assets and loans to avoid paying his debts. A mother has been jailed for causing the death of her baby daughter whilst keeping her in squalid conditions. 25-year-old Fatun Jamal was jailed for 5 years and 6 months for causing death by neglect and for 3 counts of child cruelty. The Met Police say the 11-month-old died of a chest infection after weeks of neglect at her home in Brent Park in London. 2 British charity workers reportedly captured by the Russian military in Ukraine have been named as Paul Urey and Dylan Healy. It's understood the volunteers were detained earlier this week at a checkpoint in the south of the country. The 2 men, both civilians, were working as part of a joint humanitarian project helping evacuation efforts. The reports haven't yet been independently verified. Meanwhile, Russia's defence ministry has released a video claiming to show an injured British man captured in Ukraine. The Russian defence ministry claims the man, who said his name was Andrew Hill, surrendered to Russian troops in southwestern Ukraine. A British terrorist known for being one of the 4 IS militants nicknamed the Beatles has been jailed for life. 38-year-old Alexander Ammon Coty from West London was convicted for his role in the torture and killings of Western hostages in Syria in the mid-2010s. The Labour leader has said it makes absolutely no difference whether Deputy Angela Rayner was present when he was pictured drinking beer during lockdown. Sir Keir Starmer says there's a stark contrast between the gathering in a Durham office in April last year and what he calls the rule-breaking in Downing Street that Boris Johnson has been fined for. Tory MPs have asked police to reconsider their decision not to investigate the event. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Oh, sorry, it's not Beergate at all. I'm just having a work-related meeting with Keir Starmer. Cheers. Tasty stuff. Well, you are watching and listening to Mark Dolan tonight. Who is the porn-watching PM? We'll do our own in-depth investigation into the man that's been revealed to have been looking at and watching inappropriate material in the House of Commons. In the big question, has pornography become too normalised? Is it harmless fun or a blight on our society? We'll speak to a top porn star and a Christian campaigner who you'll be surprised to hear don't agree. In our news agenda, will Vladimir Putin nuke the West? We'll speak to a top US expert on that one. And my Mark Meets guest is the queen of 80s pop, Sinitta, talking showbiz, fame and falling in love with Simon Cowell. Well, she's only human. Plus, tonight we'll be asking, where did it all go wrong for Boris Becker? Is the dominance of Amazon and Netflix coming to an end? And has the pandemic made Britain lazy? Tackling those issues and many more is my fantastic panel tonight. Dr. Rakib Ehsan. Also joining us a little bit later, Lisa Mason and the brilliant commentator Sam Dowler. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show. Getting your opinions on the national airwaves is my priority. mark@gbnews.uk. And here's the golden rule of the show. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Big opinions, big guests and big stories. A cracking 2 hours ahead. You won't want to miss a second. Let's start with this. Now there's a surprise. The Right Reverend Keir Starmer, the holiest, most pious politician this side of Jerusalem, is in hot water over this photograph. It shows him downing a beer with colleagues during lockdown. In fact, it's video footage, and it seems to be pretty conclusive. Now, it seems like this beer scandal may reach the parts other scandals have failed to do, and the plot, like a good ale, thickens. After months of denial, in a Daily Mail exclusive, the Labour Party have finally admitted that Angela Rayner, Labour's eye-catching deputy leader, was actually present at this gathering too. This is a woman who's never out of the headlines and whose legs now have their own agent. By the way, the Mail also report that multiple eyewitnesses in Parliament have stood up the allegation that she joked about distracting Boris Johnson at PMQs. Now, on Beergate, as the Labour scandal has been dubbed, we need more information. And any alleged contravention may not be on the scale of the number 10 shenanigans. But the halo has slipped for St Keir and his holier-than-thou moralising Labour Party. This is an opposition that spent months focusing on the so-called Partygate scandal at the expense of the growing cost of living crisis. But I'm going to be consistent because I said on this programme last week that I don't care about Partygate, and therefore Sir Keir's Beergate, frankly, is unimportant too. It's the rules themselves and the extraordinarily damaging and, in my view, failed COVID measures which were the real scandal. Notwithstanding that even Keir Starmer himself may have flouted the rules, it is Labour and not just the Tories who are behind the problems that we have today. I've got no doubt that Keir Starmer is a nice enough bloke, clever even, and certainly decent. But I believe him to be a man of seriously flawed political judgment. Remember, this is the politician who campaigned for Putin-loving Jeremy Corbyn to become Prime Minister. Starmer is a politician who has alienated half the voting population by not being able to say only women have a cervix. And it's a man who lost Labour the last general election by trying to cancel Brexit when he pushed for a second referendum. And I'm afraid, in my view, he got it wrong during the pandemic too. The leader of the opposition should have been just that, a voice of opposition, a questioning figure, someone demanding to know why the country was locking down, whether it was justified or would work, and what the impact on the country might be. He should have pushed for a cost-benefit analysis, which we're discovering now is an almighty shit show. Instead, what the Right Reverend Starmer wanted was more lockdowns, not fewer, more test and trace, brackets 34 billion quid down the drain, more spending, more borrowing, more human misery, more economic damage. Don't forget, he called Freedom Day reckless and sought evidence to justify keeping the country open over Christmas. When upwards of 100 Tory MPs voted against further COVID measures, it was Keir Starmer who could have prevented the damage that we've now seen. Labour plus those Tory rebels could have kept the country open for much of the pandemic, and we would have adopted the Swedish model of voluntary measures. Wear a mask if you want to, stay at home if you want to, but let the healthy and fit get on with their lives and contribute to the economy, which pays for everything. Remember, the spiralling inflation and the shocking cost of living, which will get worse, is all down to lockdowns. I wonder how many Brits who are suffering now would have tolerated the bonkers measures we've seen over the last 2 years, knowing what they do now. I can't think that many would have. And shall we take a quick look at how Sweden have been doing compared to countries that lock down hard? Here they are, with the 2 lines on the graph representing cumulative deaths in Sweden. Actually higher between 2016 and 2018, that's the upper green line, and then the lower red line illustrating 2019 to 2021. Boris Johnson is, of course, ultimately responsible for the COVID measures, along with the professors of doom at Sage, whose disastrously inaccurate modelling, 500,000 deaths, they said, got us into this mess in the first place. But this is on Keir Starmer too, because if I'd been the leader of the opposition, I would have voted against every single government COVID measure once it was clear in the summer months of 2020 that this virus wasn't going anywhere and could not be controlled, and that the measures were hugely destructive. At that point, I would have said no. Instead, I would have encouraged focused protection in care homes and among the vulnerable, as outlined by the Great Barrington Declaration. We heard this week of the horrific injustice suffered by those in care homes who lost their lives needlessly. I couldn't put it better than this young man on the BBC's Question Time show last night. Take a look.
Jamie, you asked this question. What do you think of what you've heard?
Well, I agree with what Mims was saying, to be honest, in general. I think what it shows that by Boris Johnson breaking the rules was that they were absurd in the first place, and that we should never have gone into lockdown. And that it was the biggest mistake, I think, that the government has made, because we now have a mental health crisis, we now have children who have to catch up on their lost learning, and we have NHS backlogs of over 6 million people, and we have cancer patients who can't get seen, who died during lockdown. No one talks about that. Why are we not talking about the collateral damage from 2 years of lockdowns, which have destroyed the economy and which have caused the cost of living crisis that's happened today?
Amen to that, brother. Cost of living crisis, down to lockdown. NHS waiting list of potentially up to 12 million people, down to lockdown. A mental health crisis. A wrecked economy and pensioners hungry and shivering in their homes, down to lockdown. A national debt of 2 trillion quid, down to lockdown. Damaged kids and closed schools, down to lockdown. This madness is on Boris, absolutely, and Sage, for sure. Sage are a turkey I'd like to see stuffed. But it's on the Carlsberg-loving Sir Keir Starmer too. Probably the worst leader of the opposition in the world, to coin a phrase. Whether or not Durham police find that he broke the rules when he ultimately reflects on the damage that the policies he supported have done to poor working people in particular it will have him choking on that lager of his and will leave him with an almighty hangover. Bottoms up, Sir Keir Starmer, or should I say Sir Beer Starmer. I want a great leader of the Labour Party. And if I had my way, this moralising hypocrite would be down in one. Tesla, PayPal and SpaceX founder Elon Musk is in the news. This swashbuckling billionaire has bought Twitter, the social media platform, for $44 billion. Small change to this guy. But the woke warriors, those bullying purveyors of cancel culture who seek to destroy the lives and careers of those who don't share their narrow ideology, are not happy. Good. Musk's purchase of Twitter is pissing off all the right people, including actress and campaigner Jamila Jamil. No, me neither. This actress is leaving the platform along with scores of Hollywood-based lovies. So why are these hard-left bullies so worried about the arrival of Elon Musk, a man challenging Henry Ford and Steve Jobs as potentially the greatest entrepreneur in history? Well, because he has threatened to bring back free speech to this platform, something they abhor. Incredible icons of science like Professor Carl Hennigan of Oxford University, Jay Bhattacharya of Stanford Medical School, and Professor Martin Kulldorff from Harvard, if you've heard of it, have all been censored simply for pointing out proven facts about coronavirus. And former President Donald Trump has been taken off the platform. The once duly elected leader of the free world cancelled, whilst Vladimir Putin is at liberty to tweet away at his leisure from that rather large desk of his. Well, Musk is going to fix all of that because he takes no political view himself, but he believes that politically motivated censorship is deeply wrong. So much of the content of the last 2 years that was flagged as dangerous misinformation has proved to be rather more solid on reflection. The theory that COVID came from a lab leak would have got you cancelled a year ago, but is now the main line of inquiry in terms of the virus's origins. No one mentions bats anymore, do they? Funny that. Debatable mask efficacy, rare but concerning vaccine side effects, the damage of lockdowns with little discernible reward, all disprove the censorious hoodie-wearing technocrats in California. And whether it's political opinion, COVID or trans rights, everything has been skewed to just one side of the debate. And countless voices have been silenced. I've been shadow banned more often than Count Dracula himself. Well, Elon Musk is going to tackle that and create a level playing field. Free speech has been one of the casualties of this pandemic, but it looks like this spliff-smoking maverick is about to give it the kiss of life. Free speech is everything, folks, and it's the ultimate hill to die on. If within the law you can't say what you want, think what you want and do what you want, then there's no difference between the West and communist-led China. We would have no right at that point to call ourselves a free society. So, it's been Elon time coming, but Twitter was a Musk buy. And it seems that for this space entrepreneur, when it comes to free speech, the sky's the limit. Reacting to the big stories of the day is my fabulous panel tonight. Social policy analyst making a warm and welcome return to the show, Dr. Rakib Ehsan, Olympic gymnast Lisa Mason, and journalist and commentator Sam Dowler. And Sam, let's talk about Partygate and Beergate. Are you concerned by this story? I know that you're a left-leaning commentator. Do you think this could do for Keir Starmer?
Until we find out if the police are going to fine him, then I think it's a bit of a moot point, really. You can't really compare it to the amount of parties that they had at number 10 and the amount of fines they had as well. I mean, I know everybody wants to be like, oh, Keir's just as bad, Angela was there, etc. I just think it's I think obviously everybody wants to pile on top of this, but it isn't. But I don't think it's really that much of a story. But like you said, you don't agree that the whole Partygate was a story at all to begin with, and this is even less of a lesser story. I do think, like with Boris's parties, yes, that is a story. We saw the pictures, etc., the garden parties. I mean, it was ridiculous. But I think in this case, until we actually hear if the police are going to find him or not, then it's really a bit of a moot point.
Sam Dowler, do you think Keir Starmer will regret not opposing the government's COVID measures in the course of this pandemic?
I think the problem with Keir... I like Keir Starmer, I know you don't. I think that at the end of the day, he came in at a time when obviously the pandemic hit and he wasn't really able to show his true mettle in the job or anything like that. He can't oppose things that the government were doing if they were going to risk lives just for the sake of opposing Boris. I think he hasn't. I think only now, as we are coming out of the pandemic, or we are already out of it. I think now maybe is the time that when we look to him for ideas or opposition.
Do you not think that he should have offered a more lockdown sceptic point of view in the course of this pandemic, given that he was the leader of the opposition?
Well, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, though, Mark, you don't agree with the lockdowns, and like the lad from Question Time didn't agree with them either. But it did save lives. I mean, did it or didn't it? I mean, until it's all said and done, and we get all the reports back, I don't think we're going to know. So, I mean, what was Keir supposed to do? Just say the opposite thing to Boris for the sake of it? I don't think that was the right thing to do. I think he did the right thing.
Lisa Mason, do you think just that picture of Keir Starmer enjoying a beer in a work environment is damning enough to get him in trouble and have him branded a hypocrite?
I think a lot of people love to jump on the bandwagon, and I think there are a lot of people, especially in that situation at the time, that would have quite happily taken a beer when they were working themselves. So I don't know. I don't think it's, that punishable, but, what do I know?
Does it strike you as odd, though, that he was so vociferously critical of the Prime Minister and the government in relation to their Partygate crimes, when it appears that he certainly has had a drink in an office in the company of colleagues? I mean, it's not a million miles away from what he's criticised the PM for doing, is it?
I mean, I think they all do it, though. They love to criticise each other. That's what they do. It's part of their job. So does it surprise me? Absolutely not. Everyone loves to criticise anyone for doing wrong, and when it comes to their own wrongdoings, it's a lot harder for them to self-reflect on their wrongdoings. So,
Rakib Ehsan, you are a keen analyst of contemporary politics. Do you sniff trouble here for Keir Starmer? Is this Beergate going to grow and grow as a scandal?
Well, I think that's Keir Starmer's response to Partygate, or rather his obsession with the Downing Street parties. I think it reflects the fact that Labour are seriously lacking in terms of concrete policy ideas. And I think that's going to be a serious problem for Labour as we near the next general election, whenever that may be. And I also feel that if you're going to be so critical of Conservative Party politicians, including the Prime Minister, in terms of sticking to the coronavirus restrictions that were in place over the course of the pandemic, then you need to have also been in a position to say, actually, I stuck to the rules, and I know that you're very critical of the restrictions that were in place. But if you're going to criticise Conservative Party politicians for flouting those restrictions, then it's a bit rich if your record when it comes to respecting those restrictions is not particularly strong.
I didn't think I would.
Well, of course, and these are all the moot points of the day, are they not? What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. More reaction from my brilliant panel later in the show. So much more to get through in this hour. Will Vladimir Putin nuke the West? We'll discuss that with a US expert before 10 o'clock. My Mark Meets guest is the pop queen of the 80s herself, the amazing Sinitta. She'll talk about showbiz, she'll talk about fame and falling in love with Simon Cowell. Well, she is only human. Also, lots to get through in our wonderful news agenda. Lots of big topics that we're going to get through. We're playing a game of the Great British Game Show as well, and How did things go so wrong for Boris Becker, who's been sentenced to jail for 2.5 years? But next, it's the big question, and we'll talk about pornography. Is it a harmless bit of fun or a social scourge? We'll debate that from multiple points of view, including an adult entertainer and a Christian campaigner. Speak to you shortly.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Lots more to get through in tonight's programme. Sinitta is my guest of honour in Mark Meets at 10 o'clock. Very excited about that. Also, how and why did things go so badly wrong for Boris Becker, such a popular sportsman? I would argue the most popular German in Britain. What a champion he was in the field of tennis. But what happened to his life? What happened to his career? I'm delighted to say we'll speak to former tennis pro Gary Cowan on that one. And also, Amazon and Netflix, are they in trouble? Have they peaked in our popularity? We'll discuss that very shortly too. But on Partygate, Hillary says, "Dear Mark, I'm so annoyed that Starmer and Rayner criticised Boris Johnson repeatedly over Partygate when they themselves had a drinks party of their own." Also on this, let's have a look. Beer versus cake. This is from Filled Devling, who says, "Dear Mark, beer versus cake. Doesn't hypocrisy have two faces? If Boris gets nicked, then Kev must too," referring there to, of course, Keir Starmer. "Dear Mark," says Yvonne, "Keir Starmer is not capable of making a decision. Keir is drinking alcohol and Boris did not. That is the point. He was lying. Why lie if you have nothing to hide? If Boris is guilty of cake, Keir Starmer oversaw Jimmy Savile's case, so he's guilty of failing that issue. Incompetent." And finally on this one, on Beergate, this from Alison. "Westminster all knew COVID-19 wasn't bad for all. Communist money scam for Westminster." Well, a degree of speculation there from Alison in relation to the COVID measures, but each to their own. No one gets cancelled, not on my watch. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day from multiple points of view. Tonight, an unnamed MP accused of looking at pornography in the House of Commons has been revealed as Neil Parish, the Conservative MP for Tiverton and Honiton. He has lost the Conservative whip this afternoon. Following conversations with the whip's office today, Parish has reported himself to the Standards Committee of the House of Commons for investigation. Now, it's my view that this behaviour is disgraceful unprofessional and deeply offensive to female colleagues, and he is no doubt now considering his position. But setting aside the politics of this, are we generally too prudish in our attitude to pornography? Is adult entertainment harmless fun and a much-needed outlet, or is it a damaging scourge on our society? To debate this is adult entertainer Brooklyn Blue, Chief Executive of Christian Concern Andrea Williams, and Trent Talbot, the founder and CEO of Brave Books, which publishes work which defends conservative values. He's also the author of a new adventure book. It's out now. It's called The Fight for Freedom Island. Let's start with you, if I can, Trent Talbot. Is pornography harmless fun?
Well, as a publisher for children's books, I tend to look at things through a perspective on how it affects our kids, and it's devastating for our kids. And so, but when you talk about it, I think first you have to talk about it is from the lens of how does it affect our families. 47% of families say that porn is a serious issue in their home, with 56% of divorces having one spouse saying that they have a obsession with porn. And so the secondary effects on children that's caused by the breaking up of families caused by porn is enough to create an outrage. But unfortunately, our children are getting tangled up in porn's web as well. The latest numbers are that 93% of boys before the age of 18 are seeing porn, with 60% of girls. And the average age of first exposure is like 11 years old. 11 years old, Mark. I mean, it's incredible. And just the studies that show the effects that porn has on those young minds is terrifying, with skyrocketing rates of anxiety, depression, sexual aggression, a laundry list of mental health issues.
We don't want, do we, Trent Talbot, children getting hold of inappropriate material, but that might be the fault of the tech giants or careless, incompetent parents. But is pornography in and of itself, when consensual and watched by adults, such a bad thing?
Well, yeah, I think so. Because what happens with most people, but especially kids, is that the one video, it has to be a little bit more extreme than the previous one. And so it leads to this sort of bottomless pit of depravity. And that's why we're seeing child pornography being the fastest growing online business, with 55% of its victims being 10 years of age or younger.
However, Trent, it's wrong, isn't it, to conflate child pornography, which is evil, with adult pornography? You can't conflate the two, can you?
Well, I'd argue that the latter leads to the former. I don't think people really start at the most extreme. It's like I said, it's a bottomless pit where you start at the surface level stuff and it gets more extreme and more extreme. So yeah, I would say that you can't conflate those two.
Brooklyn Blue, you work in and have worked in the adult entertainment industry. What's your reaction to what Trent Talbot said, that even the most low-level pornography is a slippery slope to something far worse?
I mean, to me, it's you can't even compare the two. They're completely different, a world apart. I mean, there is legal pornography, legal porn, which is entertainment, and it's safe and it's all consensual and everything like that, and that's entertainment. You can't even compare someone that's doing criminal activity and with the normal side of the porn industry. I mean, to put even the two together and say that somebody that's watching, harmless porn, which is, the cheating wife or this, that and the other, all that kind of thing's going to end up going down a slippery slope of then going into watching criminal porn. I mean, to me, that's insane to even be able to put the two together and say that that they even are anywhere near each other is beyond me, and I don't think that's correct at all. I think somebody that enjoys watching harmless porn, which is your typical porn, is never going to go down that road of that. Of that path. They're not going to do that. The person that's doing that is going to do that regardless, and it's not because they've started watching normal porn to begin with and they want something more. Of course not. The sort of person that is doing that would be a sort of person to do that anyway. To put the two together is insane to me.
I wonder, Andrea Williams, where it's a bit of a leap that somebody that pops one out to page 3 is suddenly going to become a rabid child abuser, you know, within hours?
There is no such thing as harmless porn. Porn in itself is a violation of something that is beautiful, sexual expression, which I believe is something that is rightly placed within the marriage of a man and a woman. And to even have this notion, as we have in society, as Trent has pointed out, that it's just somehow some recreational thing that has no impact at all, clearly doesn't bear out with the kind of thing that we're seeing in our society today. Those statistics that Trent mentioned, 1 in 25 websites is pornographic. Today, we've seen this week an MP in Parliament so consumed, it would seem, allegedly by porn, that he's actually sitting in a chamber where we make our legislation watching porn. But that shouldn't surprise us, because we've got a moral crisis around this in our nation. As Trent pointed out, our kids are watching porn. Kids' first access, there was a parliamentary report by Sarah Champion that showed in 2016 that showed that here in England, children are accessing porn as young as 9. 1 in 3 9-year-olds see porn. So we've got a massive problem. The largest traffic going out, internet traffic going out of universities in the afternoons is not to academic sites, but rather to pornography sites. What are we doing to the minds of our young people? It's not edifying. It actually degrades the people that are watching it, the people that are doing it. It degrades relationships. It breaks up relationships. That's a massive moral crisis. And I think we need to go right to the root of it. It's not just, it's all of us that are complicit in this, in permitting it, in permitting this to continue. It's not good for those that participate. Brooklyn, it's not even good for you, I would say. It's not good. It's not. At the end of the day, these things, it's not who you are, a value for you. You're worth much more than that, as is every woman. And so I would say this really strikes at a massive moral crisis that we need to look at, and that really porn ought to be banned. It should be banned. It's not
Brooklyn Blue, pornography is not good for you.
Oh, well, I don't know what I've been doing for the past 10 years then. I mean, of course, I love my job. And as I've always said, I am a feminist in myself, of a part of, as a woman, when I go onto my sets and everything like that, I am completely in control. I am completely in control of the situation. I actually have helped direct my scenes, and I've done well from it. So I would say it's been very good for me. However, obviously,
I'm agreeing with you. This week they're saying, look at all this. Look at how degrading this is for women. How dare this man do this? And so they're saying it's misogynistic. So the men, for watching women doing porn, for watching these situations, are being told that they're misogynistic. We set up a situation which hurts, which harms, which sets people against people, where we divorce sex from its proper place. That's a big mess. And it's a moral mess. And it's a moral mess which cripples our society. And we see it's even crippling Parliament, cripples our kids. It's devastating.
Andrea Williams, it's not really the fault of pornography, though, if 9-year-olds are looking at it. We don't want that to happen, of course. But it's the same with alcohol, isn't it? I mean, there are small children that get hold of alcohol. That doesn't mean that adults have got to give up their pints.
Yes, come on in, Trent.
All right. Yeah. So if you think about it this way, if there was a new drug on the streets and 93% of boys under the age of 18 were using it, with the average start age of 11 years old, and it was causing all these problems, which porn causes for kids. It causes anxiety, depression, all sorts of things. There would be worldwide outrage, and there would be congressional hearings in the United States, I know for sure, every single day until something was done. But that doesn't happen in our culture. Our culture turns a blind eye to it, and it really makes you wonder.
I mean, to me, to compare drugs and alcohol to normal porn is bizarre. I mean, like I said, obviously there is porn addiction that people can end up with that, but just because there is also the type of porn where there's romantic porn. You know, there's one company in particular that literally just do marriage porn, and it's actually made for couples to help their marriage, to spice up their sex life.
Listen, the science is clear cut. The science is clear cut. When kids watch porn, they have dramatically increased rates of anxiety, depression, sexual aggression, just the list goes on and on. Maybe you don't care, but that's what the science says, and it's not even up for debate. Everybody agrees with that. So
no, not everyone agrees with that. I'm sorry, but no. I mean, and I don't believe that the science backs that. I mean, at the end of the day, porn has always been there. It's always going to be around. If children are accessing that when they shouldn't be, that's nothing to do with the porn industries themselves. That's down to the parents putting safeguarding on the internet. It's down to, as Mark said, the tech companies. You should be safeguarding your own children from viewing that type of material. If children that shouldn't be watching it are watching it, it's not down to the porn industry.
Andrea?
1 in 25 websites is pornographic. 1 in 8 web searches are for erotic content. Within an analysis of top-selling porn content, 304 sex scenes were analysed for both physical and verbal aggression. 88% of those scenes were found to contain physical aggression and 49% contain verbal aggression. This was in a report before Parliament recently. Verbal sexual aggression in porn. It's the fact that it's so available on our phones, so easily there. Also, the secrecy of it, the way in which our children can go away, hide themselves away, and watch it. Men, women, 1 in 3 visitors to websites are now women. It's not a men, just a male thing either. That's catastrophic for true relationships, for the beauty of true human sexuality, with the loving and real sexuality. There is no such thing as romantic porn. There is no such thing as romantic porn.
Can I ask you, what about the women that view porn?
That's a nonsense, Brooklyn.
Andrea, hold fire. Brooklyn?
What about the women that view porn then? What's your view on them? Because actually, if you look at statistics, statistically, a lot of women, I don't know the exact percentage, I don't want to give an incorrect one, but I'm sure you could find it. A lot of women watch porn. It's not just men that watch it, it's women that watch it too. It's also couples that watch it together and enjoy it together. Like I said, it's not just men watching it. It really, really isn't.
Also, Trent Talbot, aren't you fighting a losing battle? We've had pornography for millennia, going back to erotic etchings in ancient Greece.
Well, you know, first and foremost, I'm just trying to help parents, help equip parents, and help them understand, you know, just how deep this problem is for their kids, and to understand first and foremost, if they're not actively fighting this battle, then they're passively losing it. And so, some steps that parents can take is to, you know, first of all, just watch what type of content comes in the home. Be the example that you want to set for your kids by creating guidelines, you know, watching what your kids are using with their phones and on TV. And then also, you know, just talk. I think it's healthy to talk to your kids about sex before someone else does. Otherwise, their curiosity will get the best of them, and they'll go to Google for answers, which you don't want them Googling anything involving sex. They'll find some nasty stuff. You know, So I would love to see there be much more stringent restrictions for big tech companies to help protect, you know, our young children. I doubt porn will ever totally go away, but we can definitely do a much better job protecting our kids.
Andrea Williams, back to family values and marriage. Don't you think there's a chance that mild and gentle pornography, the kind that Brooklyn Blue makes and has been talking about, very sort of legal, consensual, non-violent pornography, might actually prevent adultery if a husband or a wife is able to take succor on Google for a few minutes in order to not chase their neighbour's wife?
No, it's catastrophic. It breaks the marriage bond, the marriage vow. Pornography just generally dulls the soul, dulls the person, dulls the senses, dulls who they are, dulls the personality. And actually, for the health and for the beauty and for real relationships and for a real relationship between men and women, we need to cultivate much more than physical, something that's just simply physical. There's much more to it than that.
But Andrea, why do so many marriages, millions of marriages, survive pornography? I would have thought the vast majority of men in particular consume pornography on a regular basis. They're not walking around like zombies, are they?
I think that the truth is that within a marriage, it's really always important to try and work out if pornography has gone on, then of course we can forgive one another, we can work out why and move on. But actually it is a violation and a betrayal of the marriage to watch pornography, to do pornography, that's a betrayal of the intimate, beautiful sexual bond between a man and a woman, which is what that is what makes a marriage so special. That's what makes it the best building block for society. In fact, when there is faithfulness between a man and a woman, and certainly not this idea that somehow there can be a quick bit of succor by watching a bit of porn and that helps a marriage. Well, that's a travesty of the truth, I would say. Quite the opposite.
Can I ask you that? Would it shock you to know that I'm happily married and been married for 4 years? And me and my husband both perform in the adult movies, and we have a great marriage. We have our real life and we have our work life, and we have our marriage is absolutely fantastic. I suppose you wouldn't expect that, but it's true. And like I said as well, kind of what Trent was saying earlier about I believe what the problem is it's actually down to a lack of education. I think that, children should be educated on it when they get to the age which they might start finding it on the internet. It is down to education. They need to be educated. They need to understand that, what they're watching, it's not real, it's fantasy, it's entertainment. We are actresses and actors, we are entertaining, we're providing an entertainment.
It hurts,
and it is the education lack. I think if they're going to come across they need to understand what's real and what's not, and it's down to a lack of education. I've always said for years I think they should be teaching that.
Okay.
They should even send that, have that in schools, teaching them.
Trent, I've only got a couple of seconds left. You are the founder and CEO of Brave Books, which publishes work for children which defends conservative values. Your latest book is out now. It's called The Fight for Freedom Island. Tell me more.
Yeah, Mark, so Brave Books, we teach children traditional values and help combat sort of the dominating effect that the left has on culture. And so it's a subscription model where parents can go to bravebooks.com and subscribe and get a new book every month. And we just find that children learn these topics best through story. And so that's our approach. And the kids love them, parents love them. It creates great discussion between the family on some important topics, things like gender identity, sanctity of life. And it's coming at it obviously from a traditional conservative perspective.
There you go, a whole new genre of children's literature available at bravebooks.us. And yes, they do accept UK-based customers. My thanks to Trent Talbot, the founder and CEO of Brave Books and the author of Fight for Freedom Island. Also, my sincere thanks to the Chief Executive of Christian Concern, a very good friend of this programme, Andrea Williams, and another friend of the programme too, adult entertainer and broadcaster and actress Brooklyn Blue. Brooklyn, thank you so much for coming into the studio to see us. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. The results are in from our Twitter poll. Is pornography harmless fun? 40.1% say that it is, whereas 59.9%, a clear majority, say it is not. My Mark Meets guest is Sinitta, pop sensation from the 80s. We'll talk about fame. We'll talk about showbiz and falling in love with Simon Cowell. Sinitta is live at the top of the next hour. Can't wait for that one. Keep the emails coming in, Mark at gbnews.uk. Next up in our news agenda, is Putin going to nuke the West? See you shortly.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Barbara says the woman pontificating is living on a different planet. Yes, children should be protected in some way, but adults often feel the need to watch pornography for various reasons. There's nothing wrong with that. I'll get to more of your feedback shortly, but it's time now to look at a major story of the day. And of course, it's Vladimir Putin once again, who has vowed to use nuclear weapons against any country that dares to interfere with Russia's war in Ukraine in his latest chilling threat to the West. Addressing legislators in St. Petersburg this week, he said his response to anyone who threatens Russia will be lightning fast and deadly. If someone intends to interfere in what's going on from outside, they must know, he said, that constitutes an unacceptable strategic threat to Russia. They must know that our response to counter-strikes will be lightning fast, he added. We have all the weapons we need for this. No one else can brag about these weapons, and we won't brag about them, but we will use them. This is perceived by many as a reference to Russia's new Sarmat 2, or the charmingly titled Satan 2, as it's known, a nuclear missile, which was tested for the first time just days ago, and that he boasted is unlike any other weapon in the world. So, could Vladimir Putin nuke the West? Discussing this with me now, live from the United States, is Harlan Ullman, author of the best-selling new book, The Fifth Horseman and the New Mad, How Massive Attacks of Disruption Became the Looming Existential Danger to a Divided Nation and the World at Large. Ullman is also a senior advisor to the global policy think tank, the Atlantic Council. Mr. Ullman, welcome to GB News.
Mark, good to be with you.
Do you think that Vladimir Putin is in any way considering nuking the West?
Well, it's not a question of nuking the West, and this is covered in great detail in my book, as you pointed out, The Fifth Horseman. I've got 3 chapters on Putin and presidency of China, which explain their thinking, their background, and why they are doing what they are doing. I think that if Russia's condition in Ukraine becomes desperate, Putin may consider the use of a nuclear weapon either as a demonstration shot or to take out a city like Kyiv. I think that's quite remote. And what I've argued is we have to prevent that from happening. And the way that we do that is to issue a strong declaratory statement now that should Putin consider the use of nuclear weapons, our response will be immediate and overwhelming and confined to Kyiv, to Ukraine. We will take out the Russian logistics systems, which will cripple their offensive. We will take down the Kerch Bridge that links the two shores of the Sea of Azov, which will make their communication situation far more difficult. And we'll take out a goodly part of the Russian army, allowing the Ukrainian army to prevail. The United States and NATO are capable of doing that. Is this risky? You bet. But what people understand is that we have not had a serious concern about nuclear weapons since 1962. And the issue is not nuclear weapons. The issue is thermonuclear weapons, which are 1,000 times more powerful than an atom bomb. They're measured in millions of tons of TNT. So if I were to drop a 10 megaton bomb on Parliament, it would create a hole 3,000 feet in diameter and 600 feet deep. That's what we're talking about. These weapons are catastrophic. They can never be used. And I think the West has to take a very strong, aggressive policy right now to make sure that Mr. Putin never considers their use. And if you want some further information, go back to read The Fifth Horseman, which is now on sale in the UK, I might add.
That's right, and it's become a bestseller in the United States, and for good reason. Let's bring my panel in if we can. Mr. Ullman, I'm delighted to say Rakib Ahsan is with us, Lisa Mason and Sam Dowler. Rakib, do you think that Vladimir Putin would seriously consider using nuclear weapons?
Well, I think that one thing's for certain is that Vladimir Putin's tone as the Russia-Ukraine conflict has progressed has become increasingly desperate. But saying that, I think that there was many people who thought that he would never invade Ukraine to begin with. We've heard military officials, international relations experts, before the invasion took place, suggest that this was merely military exercises, just a matter of Putin just showing off his might on the Russia-Ukraine border. So I do think that ultimately Putin's words have to be treated with a degree of seriousness.
What do you think, Lisa Mason? Is it time for tough love with Vladimir Putin?
I think so, to be honest. I think it's a very sensitive subject because it's like, do we take the force and try and be involved? And it's not what anyone wants because ultimately that's going to turn into a world war. But I just feel you don't threaten something unless you have some kind of intention. And I think that there are a lot of people that can agree that mentally this man is not sane at the moment. He's making very drastic, decisions. And I think we need to take it with all seriousness and make decisions that is going to put an end to this. I don't know how...
Is it time, Sam Dowler, to call Vladimir Putin's bluff?
Well, at the end of the day, he's like the schoolyard bully, and what they were saying today was everybody leave us alone and stop arming Ukraine. Let us do our own thing. Like they're already the aggressor, so there isn't a choice for us. I mean, if he does use not maybe a thermonuclear weapon like your guest was just saying, but like even like a smaller one. I mean, NATO, for example, I was watching something the other day about how it's NATO's policy to annihilate. So if they were to start use nuclear weapons and they touched anything like near a NATO country, Putin is and his whole regime would be bringing hellfire down on themselves. So I don't think he would be that stupid. Although he's obviously a live wire at the moment, I think he's bluffing.
Briefly, Harlan Ullman, closing thoughts on this. How do you see the Ukrainian conflict playing out?
At this stage, nobody knows. The fundamental issue is, can we bring enough stuff quickly enough to sustain the Ukrainian military? I disagree with your guest because from Putin's view, what he's doing is entirely rational. If you want to know the arguments, go back to the book and read it. The issue that we have to come up with in the West is what is our long-term strategy? And we really don't have one now. Obviously, rearming the Ukrainians is important, but we're looking at expanding NATO. Does the war end suddenly? What is victory? What is defeat? Supposing it persists. And what I think the United States, NATO, and the UK have to do is to start thinking through options right now, depending upon how this evolves. And I'm afraid we're very reactive. We're not moving quickly enough to be able to anticipate. And at this stage, Putin still has the initiative. And quite frankly, I think we do not fully understand Putin's motives because from his perspective, he's not crazy. And we just don't understand what's driving him. And we need to if there's going to be a successful resolution.
Harlan Ullman, thank you for joining us, the best-selling author of The Fifth Horseman and The New Mad, available in all good bookshops. Lots more to come after this. Pop sensation Sinitta, plus where did it all go wrong for Boris Becker? And has the pandemic made Britain lazy? A big hour to come. See you shortly.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Lots to come in the next hour of Mark Dolan. Tonight, my Mark Meets guest is 80s pop sensation Sinitta. She'll talk about fame, superstardom and falling in love with Simon Cowell. She's also a reality star. She was in the jungle. She's done it all. And she'll tell her story very shortly. Also in the news agenda with my amazing panel, where did it all go wrong for Boris Becker, who has been jailed for 2.5 years today? Is the dominance of Amazon and Netflix coming to an end? And has the pandemic made Britain lazy? That plus your emails as well, mark@gbnews.uk. You can catch up with my big opinion monologue, which is now currently on our Twitter feed at GB News. In fact, it's two. It's about Elon Musk saving free speech and Keir Starmer and his alleged hypocrisy. Let me know your thoughts, mark@gbnews.uk. Here's Simon with the headlines.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Simon Pusey in the GB newsroom. Neil Parish is rejecting calls to stand down as an MP whilst he's investigated for allegedly watching pornography in the House of Commons, suggesting he may have opened a video accidentally. The Select Committee chair said he would be continuing his duties as an MP whilst cooperating with investigators. It's after he had the Tory whip suspended earlier today. Mr Parish was on GB News just 2 days ago. This is what he told us about the incident then.
I mean, I think the Whip's office will do a thorough investigation and we will wait and see that result. And I think, from that, then the decision will have to be made what action to be taken.
The former Wimbledon champion Boris Becker has been sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in prison after being found guilty of flouting the terms of his 2017 bankruptcy. The former world #1 tennis player was accused of hiding £2.5 million worth of assets and loans to avoid paying his debts. A mother has been jailed for causing the death of her baby daughter whilst keeping her in squalid conditions. 25-year-old Fatun Jamal was jailed for 5 years and 6 months for causing death by neglect and for 3 counts of child cruelty. The Met Police say the 11-month-old died of a chest infection after weeks of neglect at her home in Brent Park in London. 2 British charity workers reportedly captured by the Russian military in Ukraine have been named as Paul Uri and Dylan Healy. It's understood the volunteers were detained earlier this week at a checkpoint in the south of the country. The 2 men, both civilians, were working as part of a joint humanitarian project helping evacuation efforts. The reports haven't yet been independently verified. Meanwhile, Russia's defence ministry has released a video claiming to show an injured British man captured in Ukraine. The Russian defence ministry claims the man, who said his name was Andrew Hill, surrendered to Russian troops in southwestern Ukraine. A British terrorist known for being one of the 4 IS militants nicknamed the Beatles has been jailed for life. 38-year-old Alexander Amon Koti from West London was convicted for his role in the torture and killings of Western hostages in Syria in the mid-2010s. The Labour leader has said it makes absolutely no difference whether Deputy Angela Rayner was present when he was pictured drinking beer during lockdown. Sir Keir Starmer says there's a stark contrast between the gathering in a Durham office in April last year and what he calls the rule-breaking in Downing Street that Boris Johnson has been fined for. Tory MPs have asked police to reconsider their decision not to investigate the event. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Pornography in Parliament, there's a topic. This from Ron, who says, "Hi Mark, never mind pornography in Parliament. Why are MPs using mobile phones in the Commons when they're there to decide the way we live, the way we behave and the health of the country? Just as in schools, they should be banned." On Putin, James says, "Dear Mark, I doubt that Putin will use nuclear weapons as he knows that should he do so, he will himself be nuked and die. He's paranoid about being assassinated. So no, he won't use them." Andrew says, "Putin is a bully, Mark, and won't nuke the West. And if he uses a tactical nuke, the West will take him out and all of his weapons the conventional way. And we are in the West capable of doing that. Whatever happens, we will have to deal with it. We should never be scared of bullies." Putin's not sane, Mark. Look around, says Gail. And last but not least, for now, this from Thomas, who says, "Hello, I wish to complain, Mark. Since GB News started last year, you keep having great guests. I've been tempted to buy lots of books from all of your interesting people that appear on the shows. I now have an account with my local bookshop and need a new bookcase, and it's all your fault. Keep up the good, if expensive, work." Well, Tom, thank you so much for that. I'm glad you've enjoyed our many great guests here on GB News. Thanks for watching the show. If you're enjoying it, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, sport, showbiz and beyond. Tonight, pop superstar and TV presenter Sinitta. Born Sinitta Malone, but known globally, of course, by her first name, Sinitta is an American-born British singer. She initially found huge commercial success in the mid-80s with the single So Macho. And she enjoyed a lucrative partnership with the legendary music producers Stock, Aitken and Waterman. She's also starred in musical theatre, including as a member of the smash hit Andrew Lloyd Webber musical Cats. In the 2000s, she bounced back as a presenter and reality star, taking part in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and becoming a presenter on Loose Women, The Extra Factor and This Morning. Showbiz is in this woman's blood. Born in Seattle, Washington, her mother, Michelle Brown, was a popular Canadian disco soul singer in the 70s who gave birth to her talented young daughter whilst a member of the cast of the musical Hair. And she's had her own hand in music history, assisting Simon Cowell as a judge on X Factor by choosing One Direction as her preferred choice for the competition. She even enjoyed music success at the end of last year, releasing I Won't Be Lonely this Christmas, her first ever Christmas track. Plus, she's made headlines for her private life too, famously dating, among others, the aforementioned music mogul Simon Cowell. Well, her story continues, and I'm delighted to say that Sinitta joins me now. Hi, Sinitta.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so well, and can I tell you that notwithstanding your amazing singing voice, you still look fabulous.
Thank you so much, Mark. You look fabulous too.
Well, listen, I've had a lot more work done than you have.
I'm
Now,
wobbling on a waterbed at the moment.
do you own a waterbed?
Yeah, I'm on it now, see?
What's the thinking of a waterbed? My uncle had one years ago.
You know when you're lying in a pool on a lilo, that sort of that lovely floating sensation, it's like sleeping like that.
Do you not get seasick?
No, not at all, because you have stabilizers in it, so it's not like literally, it's not sloppy, wobbly, it's kind of, what do you call it? It's you're supported, but you're floating.
See, how long have you had a waterbed? I'm fascinated by it. Before we get to the important questions about your career, how long have you had a waterbed?
I've always had one. I've always had a waterbed. I was raised with one because it's supposed to also replicate being in the womb, because you're obviously floating in the amniotic fluid in the womb. So it's very relaxing. Your body's fully supported, weightless and everything. But also, this is so funny. This is the first time I've been on television without eye makeup. I've just had laser eye surgery. So I'm supposed to be wearing these glasses to look at a screen, but I've taken them off just for you, Mark. But it's amazing because I can actually see everything. I was like half blind. It was just age-related sort of eye
this is amazing.
degeneration.
So you've had the laser. Well, look, I'm delighted and privileged and honoured. I'm so glad that you've made time to join us after quite a significant procedure, and I'm glad you can see us in 20/20 vision now. And I wish you a speedy recuperation from that procedure. Let's talk about you. Music is obviously, it's in the family, it's in the DNA.
It is. So my mother, so we have three generations. We have my mother, Michael Brown, who was like the 80s high-energy disco diva, with big disco anthems like So Many Men, So Little Time. But we also have my auntie Amy Stewart, who sang famously Knock on Wood with the big hairdresses and Come On Baby Light My Fire. So, it was inevitable. I had no choice. I had no choice but to follow in their footsteps, really, and try and make my mark.
Your mother will have told you it's a tough business. Did she ever try to dissuade you?
Oh, yeah, she said be a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer, like anything where you could actually make some money and have some stability in life. But, once it's in your blood and in your genes like that, and growing up backstage in the dressing rooms, trying on the costumes and the makeup, it was like, who wants to be a lawyer when I can have all this fun and hopefully make some money as well?
And I understand that your mum was starring in the musical Hair when you were born, and that she was actually pretty young.
Yeah, she had me very young. She, now it's not such, there's not so much stigma around it, but she was slightly embarrassed about this when she was younger because sort of unwed and having someone young in those days was kind of frowned upon. But, it meant we had a great time because I was just everywhere with her, on tour, backstage, in the dressing rooms, at the concerts, and just, even at the parties, I'd be sort of asleep in the master bedroom and at some of the most amazing parties in the world, But I'm talking about, the Rolling Stones, Mark Dolan, David Bowie. So I had, I've basically seen and done it all before I was even allowed out or allowed into a nightclub legally. I'd already done it all. So in a way, it was a good thing because you've seen it all, you've done it all, so you don't need to get caught up in it so much.
Yeah. Tell me about Bowie and Mark Bolan and the Rolling Stones. Are they just a different species? Are these kind of superstars on a higher level, Sinitta?
Yeah. Now I realise that they were, but when I was younger, I didn't know, I didn't get it. So to me, they were just normal people. And it wasn't until we came to England and I went to boarding school here and everyone turned up to visit me on a school exit. They would sort of thought it was a good idea to rock up, for a weekend exit. And even the prefects, everyone was like freaking out that these people had come to visit me, that I suddenly realized, wow, this is a big deal. This is a big deal, because I had sort of three of the biggest, you know, musicians in the music industry, rock, pop and punk, you know, turning up to the school gates at St Mary's, and the prefects, who didn't even know I existed, suddenly wanted to be best friends. I was like 9 years old. So I kind of realized then that a lot was going on. But, you know, when I was little, the Stones weren't really in the charts at the time. It was kind of, it had already happened. David Bowie kind of came back, around Changes One Bowie. That was a sort of comeback album. So I kind of missed, I thought David Essex was the biggest pop star in the world, for example. I thought he was a much bigger pop star than them.
So who visited you at school then?
So I had Mark Dolan, because Gloria Jones and Marsha Hunt, so Gloria Jones and Marsha Hunt were the partners of Jagger and Bolan, and my mother was dating Bowie, and the three Black American women were all good friends from being in shows and musicals together, probably Hair. So it was kind of a thing. Like I said, not that I was aware of it at that time. So I just used to, to me, when you're little, everyone's your uncle. It was uncle this, uncle that, but like I said, I was much more interested in, I think Leo Sayer and David Essex and people who were in the charts and on top of the pops at the time.
Yeah. David Bowie was just old hat at that point. A has-been, if you like.
I mean, yeah, well, I didn't even know. I mean, I played the music and, you hear the music and you love it, but everybody was a singer, everybody was a dancer, everybody was on stage. So, I was kind of too young to understand fame and that side of it. Like I said, until I got to school, and suddenly it was a big deal, and there were posters and people were showing me like, oh my gosh, do you really know? And people who'd never spoken to me before ever suddenly were like sort of, oh, hi, Sinitta. And I was like, wow, what's going on?
And after your wild bohemian childhood, how did you get on at boarding school?
I mean, I think I did quite well, considering, because my upbringing was so much more modern and liberal and forward thinking. We were vegetarians, we followed a microbiotic diet, there were gay people, black people, all nationalities all mixing together. And suddenly I came to England after reading Enid Blyton books, because I was preparing for coming to England, and I thought, I should go to boarding school and have midnight feast and be around other children, because I was really precocious, in an all-adult environment. It wasn't really like being at Mallory Towers or St Clair's. It wasn't as much fun as that. It was quite strict. I was very American, so I had to have elocution lessons, and, a lot about me sort of seemed like wasn't quite right and needed to be corrected. So that was difficult. But the girls were amazing. The girls were so friendly and so sweet. And I was the youngest boarder as well, and also the only black child. So I was a bit of a mascot and a novelty. And then, of course, I sort of came with this entourage of amazing people. So the girls really enjoyed having me there. I'm not sure the teachers were as impressed.
Did there come a point where you rebelled as a teenager? I don't know how you would rebel against such a liberal childhood.
Yeah, I turned into a bit of a Safi at one point. Safi from Ab Fab. Because again, once I sort of become. Yeah, and once you go to school and you sort of learn that all these things, my essays, what I did in my summer holiday compared to everyone else's, and the teachers would be saying, "Oh, she's a fantasist. Like, what on earth is she talking about? And how possibly could Fred and Charles be in love? And it's all nonsense." And I'd be thinking, well, no, this is true. Fred and Charles are in love, because they didn't know. It was just a very different world, so things like that weren't discussed or as widely known. So then when I realized, oh, this isn't standard, I kind of, got a bit kind of preachy to my mother and be like, these people shouldn't be together and that shouldn't happen. This should be like this and this should be like that. And I kind of was rebelling against the liberalism, I suppose. And then I got out of school and realized, actually, you kind of want a bit of a balance. You want to fit in, but you still got to, you are who you are.
Clearly, you're hugely talented in your own right. Were you ever in your mother's shadow?
Always. I mean, it was amazing to become famous, because it was the first time in my life I was just known for being me because I'd spent my life being, oh, you're Michael's little girl. And, you kind of want to be, you want to be Sinitta. Also at school, no one could say my name. I was Sinitta, Sinatra, I was, everything under the sun. Nobody could get my name right. And I ended up saying, just call me George, like in the famous five, just call me George. And suddenly, ta-da, I was Sinitta. And to hear people on the radio, the DJs, David, what you call it? Who was it?
What, the disc jockeys? I'm just trying to think of the big people at the time. Bruno
Foxy
Brooks,
and all of
Simon
them sort of
Bates.
saying, huh?
Simon Bates, Bruno Brooks.
Simon Bates.
Stephen Wright, Steve Wright.
Also, David, the one with the long hair.
David the Kid Jensen.
David
Hamilton, Fluff Freeman. So many.
All of them. Foxy, and to hear them sort of say, and, in with the bullet at number 5, it's Sinitta. And you'd sort of think, oh my God, finally.
Yeah.
I had a teacher who I'm sure deliberately called me Sinatra, and I just thought, oh, well, it's prophetic. It means I'm going to be a famous singer,
Did you do the music industry, and did you handle fame in a different way to your mother? Did you learn lessons from her?
Yeah, because I suppose I didn't see, like fame was never actually a goal. It was just if I could actually make a living and pay my bills, by, in this profession, to me that was being successful. To not have to take, because in America, like in LA, everyone's also a waiter or an usherette or... you have to have other jobs because unless you're a movie star, unless you're a star, you can't survive just being an entertainer. So that was the goal, to just be able to, go from job to job to job and think, wow, I haven't had to get a proper job yet. So fame was kind of, to me, more like, when you got into a cabbie would sort of say, oh, hello, you're that Sinitta, aren't you? And they'd chat to me, or people would wave to me on the street. But for me, it was all about, wow, I'm let's see how long I can keep going at this. And here I am, almost 5 decades later. Oh my God. And I still haven't had to get a proper job.
The story continues. How did So Macho happen, your first monster hit?
Well, do you know what? So Macho was actually written by a guy called George Hargreaves, and it was supposed to be recorded by a lady called Pearlie Gates, who's a good friend of my mother's. But I used to earn money doing demos, which means when someone's written a song, you go into the studio and do like a sort of demonstration version of the record that can then be sent to the proper artist so they know how the song goes. And I'd done the demo, and I was like, oh my God, I can tell this song's a hit. I should be singing this. And I had just had to convince Simon Cowell that I should be the singer of the song. And everyone kept shooing me away because I was always like, I can do it. And when you're that kid who's always around that no one takes seriously. And I finally managed to convince him to let me do it after I did a performance of it in this tiny little gay club somewhere in East London or South London. And I did a performance of So Macho, and this tiny little pub erupted. And then it was like, okay, well, let's give her a shot. And he's never regretted it. And he should have listened to me because I'm always right, Simon.
And of course, you mentioned Simon. I know you're really, really close pals now. You courted for a while. Tell me about this guy. I mean, he's an enigma, really. Tell me about the Simon Cowell that you know.
Oh, my gosh. OK. Well, I mean, obviously, we've known each other forever. So there's a lot. I know Simon when, the record company, when I was the only artist. I know him before he had any artists. I do have to say that I had several record companies wanting to sign me at the time, like established labels like, the RCAs and all of that. And I chose to sign with Simon because he was the one who would allow me to just be a pop star, because everyone else had me singing soul and gospel or, basically sort of black music, what they considered black music. And I was like, I want to do stuff like Madonna. And he was like, okay, well, if you sign with me, you can do what you like. And, that was Simon. He just got it, and he wasn't trying to mold me into anything else. He was willing to sort of take risks. And we just had fun. we just had fun. You know, we were going to all the clubs. You know, it was tramps, it was the Hippodrome on a Monday night, gay night. Oh gosh, just all the, you know, in those days, that's what you did. You went to clubs and you danced, and that was how you dated and what everyone did. You dressed up and you went out clubbing, and you weren't even really drinking a lot. It was about the music and the dance and seeing pop videos, you know, Whitney Houston videos, Michael Jackson. So we were kind of part of that set. And Simon was a bit older, so he, you know, he was a bit kind of cooler probably than, you know, guys that, you know, the dancers and stuff that I was hanging out with at the Pineapple. And, you know, it was just really fun times. It was about getting into the clubs and standing around posing and dancing. And that's what we did. And Simon was the biggest poser of all.
And when you were, that doesn't surprise me, when you began your collaboration and your friendship, he was very much a record industry insider, a great impresario, but he became this national figure. Did you see that coming? Did it surprise you?
I mean, not really. I mean, because Simon, at the beginning, he actually really wasn't. He had a great ear and great instincts. But like I said, it was a little independent record label with no artists. And it was literally Simon just foot on the ground, you know, and in the clubs and knowing which DJs to put the record into hands to and driving around the radio stations. So he was a real grafter, just with amazing instincts. So, but, you know, no one, I mean, even I didn't know that he would, you know, hit his 40s and then become one of the most famous people on the planet. You know, I think he won things like the sexiest man in the world, the most eligible bachelor, I mean, you know, a nightmare, because he was already such an egotist and so crazy and so vain that it was like, oh my God. So you can imagine, for me and all of his friends, we were like, oh great, now we have got a monster on our hands. But I have to say, even with all the success and money and recognition and everyone either wanting to be him or to date him, he was still Simon. He was still the same, always sarcastic, always actually quite self-effacing, but with this mock kind of arrogance, and a really kind, you know, loyal friend. And all of his friends are the same people, were the same people that were his friends, you know, 40 years ago.
That's always a good sign. Sinitta, at the start of this conversation, we said that the story continues. What's next for you? What do you want to achieve next?
I want to... Well, at the moment, I want to meet someone amazing. I want to make my own TV shows, you know, because he's taught me a lot. So it's time for me to, you know, to step into my sort of thing. I want to be a bit of a lady boss. And what else do I want to do? I mean, you know, I've raised 2 beautiful children. It's all on track, really. I think I want to just continue. I can't see myself wanting to never do anything, because I've been working since I was 12. So I'm just really pleased. I've been doing Chicago, the musical recently, playing Mama Morton. Then Sheila Ferguson took over from me. Apparently Gemma Collins is taking over from her. And then I'm going back in for another 3 weeks. You know, it's just nice to still be doing stuff, because, you know, it can be all over once you get into your 50s, you know?
Well, listen, you must be Britain's most eligible bachelorette. You really, really must. The idea that you're single is just astonishing. It's a travesty. It's bizarre. But I'm sure that problem will be solved very, very shortly, Sinitta.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Especially if you... By the way, does that waterbed... Ask you a personal question. Does it interfere with how's your father?
No, darling, you just ride the waves, actually. You don't have to work as hard.
You see, I drown, but that's me. I'm not a strong swimmer. Sinitta, it's been such a delight to have you on the show. I've got an offer for you. We've been flooded with emails, by the way, saying how fantastic it is to have you on the show. You've got so many fans out there. Would you consider joining us on the panel of Mark Dolan tonight on a future occasion?
I would love to. What do I do?
My team will be in touch. We will agree a price. It will be a high price, because you are worth every penny, because you get what you pay for in this life.
Oh, my God. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mark. I will see you on the panel.
Brilliant stuff. Those waterbeds don't pay for themselves. Sinitta, what a joy to have you on the programme. See you in the studio very soon. Pop superstar Sinitta there telling her amazing story. We wish her a speedy recovery from her eye operation. What a trooper she is to come on this show, even when she's feeling a tiny bit under the weather. But OMG, doesn't she still look fabulous? Next up, we've got so much to get through in our news agenda with my panel. Where did it all go wrong for Boris Becker, who's going to jail for 2.5 years? We'll speak to former top tennis pro Barry Cowan. Also, is the dominance of Amazon and Netflix coming to an end? Here's hoping. And has the pandemic made Britain lazy? Plus, we've got another great British game show. So much to get through. Don't go anywhere. See you shortly.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Big reaction to my interview with the wonderful pop superstar Sinitta. Roy says, "Hi Mark, I must remember the next time I'm invited to an interview not to bother getting out of bed. Is Sinitta still working from home?" I think she is. I think she's on the furlough. I think that's how she paid for her waterbed. But a really positive reaction to that interview with Sinitta, who has agreed to join us on the panel on a future occasion. Still with me reacting to the big stories of the day, our social policy analyst, Dr. Rakib Ahsan, who's just popped out for 1 second, but he'll be back shortly, Olympic gymnast Lisa Mason, and journalist and commentator Sam Dowler. Now, tennis icon Boris Becker has been jailed for 2.5 years for flouting the terms of his bankruptcy in 2017. The 54-year-old, former men's world #1 and one of Germany's most liked exports, was found guilty earlier this month of transferring hundreds of thousands of pounds to his business account and failing to declare a property he owned in Germany. A sad fall from grace for the man who won Wimbledon 3 times. So where did it all go wrong for Boris? I'm delighted to welcome former British tennis pro turned top commentator, journalist and broadcaster Barry Cowan. Hi, Barry.
Good evening, Mark. Yeah, sad day.
Very sad day. This guy is one of my heroes. Let's talk about his tennis. Where does he rank, Barry?
Well, I mean, certainly for me, Mark, I remember him going back when I was, 1985, and he was actually the last player to win Wimbledon with the white balls. And the way he won it as a 17-year-old was truly remarkable. To be able to, it was only the year before. I mean, he was still a junior. I mean, to be able to then in 85, almost unknown, and then come back the following year, Mark, to defend his title And he owned the centre court for a period of sort of half a decade or so. The way he would dive on the grass, his charisma, his presence. When you're in the company of Boris, I can only imagine, in the locker room, what he was like. He would have been really intimidating. In fact, he said to me a few years ago, sort of when we were off air in the green room, when I was working with him at the US Open, he said, I never lost a match when we had a rain delay. And he genuinely believed that, because if he was losing, he would somehow be able to psych out his opponents. So not only did he have the athleticism, an incredible game, but he also had an incredible way about him in terms of his presence around the tennis scene. But not a day that has been particularly good, obviously, for Boris. Not a good day for tennis, and not a good day for the people concerned in terms of the bad money arrangements that he's had.
Yes, he's made mistakes, and of course he'll now be paying his debt to society. It is a very sad sight to watch him go into prison for 2.5 years. What about his nature? I mean, he's known to be a very warm, genial and generous guy, but he clearly has a self-destructive bent, which is not unusual among sporting icons.
Yeah, that's what some people they do say about some people that are genius. They, part genius and part of the other stuff that maybe we can't understand. And someone asked him a few years ago, Boris, why do you live this sort of life, this chaotic lifestyle where he's so busy and so frantic? And he said, that's what I like. I think clearly where he's at now is bad advice, bad investments. And it's caught up with him. The sort of last memories of Boris on the tennis scene was coaching Novak Djokovic, and what a successful collaboration they had together. And he helped Djokovic become the dominant force that he was, because Djokovic was a great tennis player. But then working with Boris, along with some of the other people in Djokovic's corner, he became an absolute mental monster, and very tough to be able to beat. And I think Boris helped him along that way.
So a great commentator, a great player and a great coach. With any luck, he'll be out in a year or so. Can he bounce back?
Well, that's not for me to ask, to be honest, Mark. Yeah, I mean, I think that's for other people to answer that. I mean, it's, that they often say everyone makes a mistake, and over time, time's a great healer. But I mean, he's, clearly what has happened today, and with him being sentenced, he's going to have to serve that time and reflect and, come back. And, I'm sure, well, he's got plenty of years to live, that what he'll want to do when he comes out in prison, whenever it may be, whether a year or two.
Yes, well, stick with us, Barry, because we still have my panel of Lisa Mason, Sam Dowler and Rakib Ehsan. And can I ask you, let me ask you, Lisa, as a top sportsman yourself, sports person, do you think that Boris Becker deserves a second chance?
I think, yeah, I do. I believe that people do make mistakes. I think with a lot of athletes, when they have all these endorsements and this fame, you live to your means. And I agree with what the gentleman just said. And I think he's had a lot of bad advice. I don't think these are decisions that you just do by yourself. This is obviously people influence him to doing certain things. That's a lot of decisions to make by one person.
What about that self-destructive element? Have there been sporting stars that you've known who had, that wonderful talent, but also that ability to press the self-destruct button? Because this has happened to Boris in the past. I mean, he's had legal fights with the German authorities over his, not spending enough days in Germany to justify his tax status. So, there's not a new issue for Boris. And, of course, he famously ran into a cupboard in a posh central London restaurant with a waitress, which led to an illegitimate child. So, I mean, do you look at this guy and think, well, he's got a kink, he's got a, No,
I think you find this a lot, I think, and sorry to say it, within sports people. I think, it's this... People look at them as though they're gods and they can get what they want and have what they want. I think that's the key with a lot of people, is having a strong circle around you, and a lot of people will surround themselves around you when you're at the top of your game and then advise you in the wrong way. And I don't think it's something that he does consciously. I think it's just something that maybe it has just become a habit. And, you know, repetition is hard to break.
Maybe some of these great athletes, they're chancers, aren't they? They're gamblers.
Yeah.
Maybe he gambled with the authorities slightly.
Maybe he thought his name could get him away from a lot of things.
Yeah. What do you think, Sam? Boris Becker, is he just a wrong-un?
No, I think I feel very sorry for him, actually, because at the end of the day, this is white-collar crime. It's like no one's actually been hurt in this scenario. It's to do with taxing. It's to do with like I read today, for example, that they want to get his medals and his trophies back and stuff, and that's ridiculous. He earned those fair and square. I mean, I don't think it. I mean, obviously it is a crime, like avoiding tax and all that kind of stuff. But like, I mean, if you look at the weak sentences that people get these days, especially in this country, for far viler crimes, and you know, and he's. I mean, I hope he's out in a year. I don't think anybody would particularly have any bad blood about him or to say about him, because like he made mistakes, and it's like you said, like at the end of the day, like, you know, he was surrounded by yes men, probably people who, when he had money, were, oh, do this, mate, and he's just like, okay, I'll do whatever, you know, and then at the end of the day, it all comes crashing down. And I think like the statement they said in court today about how he's got nothing to show for himself, nothing to show for his whole career, I think that's a shocking thing to say, and you know, and hopefully he's hidden those medals and trophies well, so that nobody has to grab them from him.
Yeah, I mean, Barry, of course, that will be the burning question as to whether broadcasters like the Beeb have him back. But the bottom line is that Boris Becker's not going anywhere. It's worth pointing out, isn't it, that he's hugely popular, particularly in this country. I think he's Britain's most popular German, perhaps now second only to Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, Jurgen would get my say, definitely, Mark, being a Liverpool fan. But yeah, I mean, I think for Boris, I mean, that's up for the BBC and that's up for other television companies to decide in the future. But I mean, I will never forget him as an incredible tennis player, and the inspiration he gave certainly me when you know, ultimately I was trying to dream what he was able to do, and then reality hits that was never going to happen. But I think that, you know, at 17 years of age, and I think it's an example really for all authority. Just because you are incredibly strong on the court or in whatever you do at 17 years of age doesn't mean you don't have your issues off the court. And we shouldn't always take it for granted. And of course, mental health is something that's very much a topic now. And I think it's really important in all people around celebrities like that we look after them, because we don't want to have, you know, in a year or two or 3 or 4 years' time, other great sporting stars have to go through what Boris has had to go through. You know, you want to be able to remember them as some people that were incredibly focused and great in their profession on the court or on the field of play, and also absolutely rock solid off the court. And, you know, while we're talking about tennis, can I just bring it back to Ash Barty and what a wonderful story that is, that someone who has fulfilled her dreams, won Wimbledon, won the Australian Open, and you know what, and said, age 25, that's it for me. I'm happy with my lot, and I'm going to pursue other dreams.
Barry Cowan, do join us again soon. Brilliant to have you on the show, sharing your thoughts about the tennis icon and the British national treasure that is the amazing, the remarkable Boris Becker. A brief word on this, Rakib. Are we being too kind and understanding about somebody who is a criminal now?
I think that the fact that he was such an astonishing sporting performer, I mean, won Wimbledon at the age of 17, that's just remarkable. But I do feel we're entering that kind of territory where we are making excuses for him a little bit. I mean,
because we like him.
Because
he's famous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, when, you know, depending on social class, we're talking about, you know, mental health of celebrities. I don't hear mental health being used as much of a justification when poorer elements of society commit crimes. So I think that irrespective of class, we have to be honest that the law applies irrespective of what social class position you have, whatever background you are. So, of course, what happens after, you know, he's released, this up to the BBC whether or not they want to appoint him as a commentator for tournaments such as Wimbledon. But the reality of the matter is, he's a grown man. We're talking about, he was surrounded maybe by the wrong characters. He's a grown man, and you have to take, there has to be a degree of personal responsibility.
You've made your bed and you've got to lie in it. Take your punishment. Fascinating conversation. Lots more to get through. Next up is the dominance of Amazon and Netflix coming to an end. And has the pandemic made Britain lazy? Celebrity hairdresser Nikki Clark thinks it has. Plus, another great British game show. We'll be guessing the age at which certain celebrities popped their clogs. Looking forward to that one. Wow. Very jolly subject. Lots to get through. We've saved our best till last. I'll see you after this.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
You know the best bit of my show is when you get in touch. Mark at gbnews.uk. Loving your emails about Boris Becker. This from Ron. Hey up, Mark. Looks like it's Boris's turn to serve. Maybe he's been racketeering. Naughty lad. This from Daryl, who says, Mark, I too am watching the show in bed. Out of the two Borises, or is it Boris number 2? I think they jailed the wrong one. There you go. And Jennifer, on a serious note, says, Dear Mark, what a waste of taxpayers' money this prison sentence is for Boris Becker. Prison should be for violent offenders that the public needs to be protected from. He should have been fined and done some hours of community service. And lastly, Roy, another Roy, says, Mark, we give everyone a second chance that makes a mistake, including terrorists, murderers, rapists, etc. So, of course, he needs a break. Excuse the pun. Brilliant stuff. I'll tell you what, the wordplay is coming in thick and fast. However, flipping the argument on its head, Terry says, Dear Mark, please stop making excuses for Boris Becker. He's earned a fortune in his time and squandered it all and ended up owing shed loads of money to little people. Don't make out that financial crime has no victims. He's had numerous chances. If he loses his trophies, which he's thrown away with him, then it's only his own fault. Thank you very much for that, Terry. Still with me, my brilliant panel reacting to the day's big stories, Rakib Ehsan, Lisa Mason and the brilliant Sam Dowler. Now, Amazon have reported a loss in their first quarter due to online sales plummeting and the value of its shares in electric vehicle firm Rivian going down. This is similar to Netflix, who reported their first subscriber fall in more than a decade, losing over 200,000 subscribers. So it's the dominance of companies like Amazon and Netflix coming to an end. Rakib, is this just wishful thinking?
I think that in terms of looking at those latest figures, I I think Netflix were also complaining about the possibility of people sharing the subscriptions.
Yeah.
So I think that they might be looking to tighten those processes. I think in terms of Amazon, I think there'll be many people who have shifted towards a more online-oriented style of shopping. But I think at the same time as the economy is opening up, I think people will take up those opportunities to do real-life shopping again. You know, interacting with fellow customers.
The idea that the high street is just dead, never going to come back, maybe there's hope for the high street now.
Well, I think that a lot of our high streets have been struggling for some time. I think that ultimately the government talks a great deal about its levelling up agenda. I think they really need to be talking more about how we can help to regenerate the high streets, because they've been struggling for some time. But perhaps with the economy opening up, there might be signs of life. We'd like to see that.
Yeah, we have to hope so. An interesting story from Nicky Clark, who has closed his Mayfair hair salon because he's been saying that actually the pandemic and lockdowns has made workers lazy. And, of course, we know that hairdressing is not something that you can do from home. You've got to be in the salon. But he doesn't feel... I mean, he speaks very highly of his team, but he doesn't think that the work ethic is quite there. Do you think the lockdown has made Britain lazy?
I think there were two types of people in lockdown. And I think there were the type of people that were like, OK, I've got time now. I'm going to pick up a new hobby. I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to get into shape. And then, you know, they were out. And this is why Amazon, they were great in the lockdown because, you know, everyone was buying gym equipment. You couldn't buy any weights online because I tried. But also, you know, at the same time, there's that other end of the spectrum where they were like, I've been so busy and now I don't have to go in the office and I don't have to wear pants and I'm just going to sit on the sofa and do nothing and I'm going to eat what I want. So I think it depends on the individual and the mindset. And I think it is very difficult to motivate people when everyone has been locked down for so long and they haven't been in work. You know, it's become repetition. And like I said earlier, it's hard to break repetition, you know, and patterns of behaviour. So I think it is difficult. And I think to have the same expectations coming out of a 2-year lockdown is a bit unrealistic. Do I think that people are lazy? No, I think it's just down to the individual and how they look at things.
And do you think this is a transition, Sam, or do you think that actually we're going to have a different attitude to the work-life balance forever now?
Well, I think we discussed on this show before, actually, that I do think there is a sea change and it will be that way forever. I mean, there'll be... I mean, there's no reason, for example, to have, you know, a rush hour 9 to 5. There's no need for that. Do you know what I mean? There's no, like... And there's, I mean, obviously, like, you know, working in an office, you know, there's all the, you know, restaurants and cafes around there that, you know, suffer when people aren't there, etc. But I think, you know, it's all to do with, like, the pendulum swinging one way and then coming back into the middle. I think there will be... there will be a time where, you know, everybody sorts their own hours out, etc. I mean, I think with the Nicky Clark thing, once upon a time an old lady said that I looked like Nicky Clark, and I wasn't sure whether it was an insult.
You look like a young Nicky Clark. Have you ever
had highlights? Yes.
Well, no. Have you ever been a client of his?
No, I couldn't afford Nicky. I couldn't afford Nicky Clark. But I have
You look like you just stepped out of the salon.
Thanks, Mark. But I think there's like I have hairdresser friends, for example, and you know, obviously during the pandemic they couldn't work at all, and I think it's strange because. There's a lot of freelance hairdressers who hire a chair, don't they, at their local salon, and then they have their own clients, and then they have home clients as well. So I think maybe what Nicky has suffered is that that his staff perhaps wanted to do their own clients at their own houses or other people's houses, and they didn't necessarily want to be at his salon the whole time. So I think, you know, within hairdressing, obviously we don't know about hairdressing that much. I mean, I have my own hair, but not as in, like, you know, as in the industry itself. I think obviously that's completely changed, and maybe like his business model wasn't working.
It was old school. I think that he provided a service, which was great, but, you know, again, with lockdown and things, people actually started to learn to cut their own hair, did their own highlights. And, you know, there's so many YouTube channels available that can show you, and people can't justify, especially now in the, you know, how things are, you can't justify spending £200 on a hairdresser. So go and get a box dye and try and do it yourself. If it doesn't work out, we get the lady down the road.
But I just wonder whether the lockdowns have created a sort of chill-out generation who don't have the work ethic that we had before it all started, Ricky.
But I think that's something that predates the pandemic. I think that's something that, in terms of how our society works, not so much laziness, but I don't think we're a particularly productive economy. I think that when you look at the UK compared to other countries, we don't rank particularly well in terms of productivity.
Work ethic, is that an issue?
Well, I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I think that we have, in my view, if you talk about our broader social debates, I think there's a great deal of talk about rights, for example. We don't talk much about responsibility. So I think naturally that will have an impact on the degree to which people hold a dedicated work ethic and how widespread that is in society.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree with you, I have to say, and also even when it comes to COVID measures, you know, we asked for all these lockdowns and we were prioritising that virus, but it all came at an economic price, right? One that we're paying right now. Well, that debate will run and run. Time now for this. Yes, indeed. Now I'm very excited because it's time for our Great British Game Show. Actually, the reason we're playing the game is a little sad, which is the passing of the world's oldest person, Kane Tanaka, who sadly died at the age of 119. Amazing. Well, to mark this occasion and to celebrate her great life, we thought we would see if both my panel in the studio and you at home could guess how old these celebrities were at the time of their passing. So we're going to play a game of age is just a number until you die. Wow. So let's start with Alexander the Great. How old was he when he popped his clogs?
He was in mid-30s, wasn't he? He wasn't that old.
No, I don't think he was.
I've got no idea.
OK, do you care to offer a number?
35.
Lisa?
32.
I'm going to go for 37.
Well, the points are with Lisa, exactly, on the money, the bullseye, 32. Alexander the Great.
Same age as me now.
What about the Hollywood... Oh, that's a bit worrying. Watch your back, Rakib. Look out for arrows. How about the Hollywood actress Carrie Fisher, who starred, of course, Princess Leia in Star Wars?
Oh, wow.
I think she was 64.
64? Lisa?
I actually don't have a clue, but I'll say
she was in her 60s, so 64, 66?
I'm going to go for 65.
OK, well, 64 wins it because she was 60.
Oh.
Very sadly, that's right. Great talent. Jimi Hendrix.
Oh.
What a legend. Taken too young, of course, but what age?
I'm sure he was in here.
Was he in the 27 Club? He wasn't.
He was!
Yeah.
Points to Sam Dowler. He was exactly 27.
Sam, you're good at this.
The 27 Club also includes Janis Joplin, Brian Jones, Jim Morrison and Kurt Cobain.
And Amy Winehouse.
Oh, gosh. Well said. How about our next legend of pop music, Buddy Holly? How old was he when he died in a plane crash? You won't believe this.
25.
No, I don't even...
You don't?
Before my time.
Wait, I think...
Younger, higher or lower?
I'll go lower.
Yes, you're bang on.
I said 23 maybe.
He was 22 years of age.
Wow.
And yet, imagine, he wrote all those great songs.
Yeah,
Sean Connery, James Bond, died not too long ago. How old was Sean Connery?
85.
Oh, yeah, I see. I'm going to go with him because I know he knows it.
Higher or lower?
I'll go higher.
80.
I'll go 87.
87?
I'm going to go lower. I'm going to say 84.
The well-preserved Scotsman was 90 when he died.
No.
Let's power through a few more. We've got a few seconds. The Queen Mother.
Oh, 101.
101. Well done, you royalist. Martin Luther King, the great Martin Luther King.
Oh, gosh.
Rough idea?
40s?
39.
39 is the right answer. Well done, Rakib. Marie Curie.
Oh, she was maybe...
She lived at a decent age.
She lived to a good age.
Oh.
I have no 50.
For that, maybe...
But she died of
62.
Higher. 66 points go to Rakib.
Oh, she died of radiation poisoning, didn't she?
I think she did. Last but not least, Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer of all time.
51.
I know. I think he was older.
72.
68.
74.
Oh, 74.
There you go. Brilliant stuff. We ended on a cliffhanger. Thanks to my amazing panel. Do come back soon. Thanks to my brilliant team. And stick around because I'm hosting Headliners and Mark meets tomorrow, 10 o'clock. You won't want to miss it. See you at 9.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Clear skies for many of us overnight will lead to a fine start to the weekend, particularly for England and Wales, whilst Scotland and Northern Ireland turn increasingly cloudy with outbreaks of rain. The rain arriving because of an area of low pressure which is pushing in from the northwest. That's going to nudge aside the high pressure that has dominated the weather through the last few days, but it holds on for the next 12 to 24 hours in many places, particularly across England and Wales, where there will be extensive clear spells overnight and a chilly feel for the start of the weekend, perhaps even a touch of frost in 1 or 2 spots. 2 Celsius there in Birmingham, 4 in Norwich, 3 in London. 7 though for Glasgow, Stornoway and Belfast, because in Western Scotland and Northern Ireland it turns cloudier through the night, and outbreaks of rain soon turn up for the start of the bank holiday weekend. A damp day to come then, and that rain eventually reaching eastern and southern Scotland, spilling into Cumbria by mid-afternoon. But across the south of the UK, we keep the sunny spells, and it's a warmer day because of a change in wind direction. Certainly for the east coast, we'll feel that 16 to 18 Celsius in the east of England, but more like 13 for Glasgow and Belfast because of the outbreaks of rain. Those spells of rain push south on Saturday night, and with extensive cloud across the country, well, it's going to be a frost-free, even a mild night to come, with temperatures in some places staying up at 10 or 11 Celsius. But it's a grey and damp start to the day on Sunday. Outbreaks of rain for much of western England as well as Wales, pushing into the Midlands, East Anglia, the south of England, but avoiding the far southeast, I think, throughout much of the day. And it brightens up for Scotland, Northern Ireland, and eventually Northern England. Scattered showers break out